This is Stewie being just a bit aggressive towards his mom.
Lost!
And this is Stewie straight up ending her. Today, I'm going through and rating some of Stewie's best and worst attempts at killing his mom, from amateur botch jobs to professional hitman quality work that would have succeeded if it weren't for Lois's plot armor. Starting with his worst kill attempt in E Peterbus Unum, where Peter starts his own country due to a technicality in Quahog's zoning laws.
Sorry, but according to this map, you're not even part of these United States, which would make you a communist!
God bless the real Americans like Mayor West for keeping our country safe from those low-down, dirty communists. The episode begins with Peter wanting to get a new swimming pool after seeing all the cool stuff his friends got with their tax refunds, but Uncle Sam isn't known for paying nice when it's tax season.
You're not entitled to a refund.
Peter goes to Mayor West to get a zoning permit, which is where he learns his house is technically not even part of the United States. This, of course, spawns a devilish little idea in his head.
From this day forth, this territory will be known as Pretoria.
An entire nation run by Peter Griffin. What could possibly go wrong? As it turns out, pretty much everything. Especially once he annexes Joe's pool and calls it Johio. And in traditional US fashion, the military responds with an appropriate amount of force for a nation the size of a single house.
The U.S. Army. Oh, that's a good army.
You think, Peter? They also cut the electricity and water to Pretoria, which provides Stewie with the perfect opportunity to strike while Lois is off guard. But let's just say, it's not his most well-thought-out scheme.
But we have to think about the welfare of our children. Stewie, is that you?
My mind's made up. I'm not giving up an inch of Praetorian soil.
I respect the dedication to trying to stab his mom on sight with the kitchen knife, but there's a time and a place for that, buddy. I'm rating this at 1 out of 100, since he literally didn't even get his hands on the actual murder weapon. Bring a step stool next time, little bro. Naturally, the rest of the Griffins get fed up with Peter's stubbornness and leave Pretoria, which forces him to the negotiating table. Both sides are unwilling to budge until Lois steps in and saves the day.
Every night when you get home from work, I'll scratch your back with a matchbook cover like you like.
That's an oddly specific item to use as a back scratcher, but I won't complain if it means world peace. That being said, even when Stewie does have prep time for his murder plans, his earliest attempts were still pretty garbo, like the ones that took place in the very first Family Guy episode, Death Has a Shadow, where Peter loses his job but makes a fortune in welfare fraud.
Not another welfare scam.
No. Minority scholarship.
Things kick off with Stewie putting the finishing touches on his mind control device, only for Lois to snatch his toy away from him before dinner. So like any normal infant, he spends the rest of the episode putting together various schemes to whack his mother.
I mean, you... Oh, Mom, are you all right? This chair leg was loose. Isn't that silly? I could have broken mine now.
Damn.
Did you seriously think a little fall from a chair would be enough to kill her, Stewie? That's like a 5 out of 100 at best. At least wait for her to be on a tall stool or something next time, man. Stewie takes his next shot at Lois over dinner while Peter is desperately trying to hide the fact that he got laid off, and I do mean that in the most literal of senses.
Now, I know you all hate eggplants, but what on earth was that?
What the deuce are you staring at?
You know what, we'll give him a 30 out of 100 on that one, since a laser gun is way more lethal than weakening a chair leg. And I gotta admit, the way he hit the gun in a tuna sandwich is also pretty impressive. Dude just needs to hit the shooting range a bit more and he'll be landing those shots in no time. But given that his last 2 attempts at a subtle murder didn't really pan out, Stewie decides that maybe it's time to take on a more aggressive approach.
Stewie, why don't you play in the other room?
Why don't you burn in hell?
What?
Man, you know you're bad at your job when your target couldn't care less about being shot at. 5 out of 100, because I literally saw you whiff that 3rd shot there. If you can't even hit a fracking chair, it's time for you to go back to the drawing board, buddy. Finally, he's had enough and decides to go out with a literal bang.
Life is like a box of chocolate. You never know what you're going to get. Your life, however, is more like a box of active grenades.
Now, this is more like it. A box of grenades at point-blank range, so there's no way he screws this one up? Wait a minute.
You just want your toy back. Okay, here you go, honey.
Yes, well, victory is mine. Ah, damn you all!
Oh, Stewie. At the end of the day, you really are just a silly little guy with a football for a head. This one was definitely looking promising at first, but I gotta give it a 1 out of 100 for the way his murder attempt literally blew up in his face. Now, you might think these mishaps only happened in the earlier seasons of Family Guy, but even as the series progressed, Stewie was still prone to making dumb mistakes like the one he made in Terminator, where he designs a robot to kill Lois that, well, let's just say has a different target in mind.
Okay, Terminator, kill Lois. What are you doing? She's in the kitchen.
Yeah, this is not going to be one of Stewie's finer moments. The episode begins with Lois serving up broccoli and Stewie designing the Terminator-style robot to kill her out of spite for daring to serve him that disgusting green vegetable. But even though he scraps that idea since the technology is years ahead of its time, he's shocked when the actual robot arrives at his house to whack him instead of Lois. He and Brian try to make their escape in a chase sequence that looks a bit too familiar. Yeah, they end up getting cornered in a motel room just like in the first Terminator movie. The Family Guy writer's room wasn't exactly known for their creativity this late in the series, considering that they shamelessly stole scenes from the only good Terminator films. Stewie and Brian discover that a future Brian programmed the robot to kill Stewie, so they travel to 2060 to figure out what could have possibly caused them to have beef in the future.
What happened? Brian and I were friends. He ruined what could have been a perfect Instagram post with a sarcastic comment.
Yeah, that tracks. Social media and all the little cloud chasers will be the death of us all. I would know because I'm one of them. But even after they return to the present, more Terminators arrive from the future to try and kill them both. They decided that there's only one way to squash the beef and prove to the Terminators that they're best friends. What? You wouldn't swap spit with your best friend to save the world? Amateurs. While the Terminators do disappear from their timeline, this is still one of Stewie's worst attempts at actually killing his mom, as a reminder. Not only did his own creation try to kill him, but he also had to spend the entire episode going back and forth in time to fix his own mistake instead of, focusing on the frackin' murder attempt. 5 out of 100. And that's only because Terminators are frackin' cool as a concept. Do better next time still. Unfortunately for us, Stewie's reliance on fragile technology continues in Pal Stewie, when he makes a new friendship at the playground that quickly turns sour.
Ho-Hog Family Fun Zone.
Honestly, this just looks like an average Tuesday at Chuck E. Cheese. How they're still in business today is seriously beyond me. The episode begins with Stewie lining up a frackin' drone strike on Lois using one of those cheap commercial FPV drones, murder drones. Everything is perfectly set up for the kill shot and there's nothing that could possibly interrupt.
What the deuce?
Sorry I broke your toy.
Okay, a ball to the face might mess things up a bit. I'll be nice to him, give him a 20 out of 100 on this one, since there's no way he could have predicted a kid throwing a ball at him. But in the future, maybe get a sturdier tablet, my guy. The ball-throwing lad introduces himself as Hudson, and he and Stewie quickly become friends. That is, until Stewie realizes he's the only one who didn't get an invite to Hudson's birthday party, and hell hath no fury like a Stewie scorned. I don't know, man. That actually looks like an improvement compared to the actual ball pits at Chuck E. Cheese. Brian eventually confesses that he was the one who tore up the invitation to ensure he and Stewie remained best friends. And while the two of them make amends, it doesn't change the fact that Stewie really should have invested in a better tablet if he wanted to whack Lois. It's especially frustrating when you consider that Stewie's made some seriously impressive inventions like the one in the story on page 1, where Peter replaces Meg's article in the school paper. Rest in peace, Luke Perry. You deserve way better than being a lame gag on Family Guy. Things kick off with Stewie dealing with a bit of little man syndrome during a family visit to Brown University. After the head chemist escorts him out of the lab for being too young, Stewie decides he wants to change that by any means necessary. Unsurprisingly, the Zoltar machine doesn't do a thing to change Stewie's size, but it does sucker him out of an easy quarter. He starts fantasizing about all the things he could do if he was a big boy, when a genius solution comes lumbering into view.
If I could build a device to harness the size of that Leviathan.
From that perspective, Chris really does look like Andre the Giant. Stewie hits the lab and devises a literal mind control device to hijack Chris as his meat puppet, and after getting his older brother to purchase an axe, all that's left is to whack Lois once and for all. Considering how inaccurate Stewie is when he's in control of his own body, I don't know what he expected when he tried to control a clumsy fatso like Chris. Even worse is the fact that when Lois turns on the microwave, the mind control device shorts out, causing yet another Terminator situation.
I can't even say my name without people asking me if I made it up. How could Dad do this to me?
Seriously, dude, Stewie really needs to work on making his tech less fragile. 30 out of 100. And that's only because the whole mind control tech thing it might be effective if done well. But at this point, it might be worth going back to old school tactics. Luckily for us, that's exactly what Stewie ends up doing in Boston Stewie when Stewie meets his half-brother from Boston and tries to get him adjusted to a more civilized lifestyle in Quahog.
I need that belt. I'm taking my LinkedIn photo later.
You know what? I think I like this version of Stewie, actually. He's wicked. That was not Boston at all. The episode starts with Stewie learning he has a half-sibling in Boston thanks to an egg donation from Lois way back in the past. He heads down to the good old city on a hill thinking he'll find someone who's his intellectual equal. But,
Eat my whiz, you Harvard fruit bags!
yeesh, even Stewie's perfect genes are no match for whatever they're putting in the water in Boston. Still, he decides to bring his half-brother back to Quahog, where he uses his counterpart's crude Bostonian attitude and mannerisms to terrorize all the adults in his life. And of course, he's got his sights set on one adult in particular. This is the first murder attempt on Lois that actually sees some level of success instead of being complete flops like the previous ones, easily giving this one a 55 out of 100 for the raw brutality of Boston Stewie beating the crap out of Lois. If Stewie was smart enough to give his half-brother something like brass knuckles or a baseball bat, he just might have been able to off his mother once and for all. Boston Stewie decides he wants to get adopted after seeing Lois have a tender moment with Stewie, so Stewie decides to help his half-brother out by trying to civilize him in time for the adoption fair. That's a pretty tall order considering he only has 1 week to work with, but the two brothers are hopeful that they'll find some normal people as adoptive parents.
You want to come live with us? We live near an overpass and we got lots and lots of D batteries to throw.
Nope, the best I can do is Mark Wahlberg's Seven Sisters from The Fighter. Tough break, kiddo. Still, things are looking up for Stewie as his murder attempts start to get a bit closer to the end goal of whacking Lois for good. Like what happened in You Can't Do That on Television, Peter, where Peter creates and stars in his own children's TV show.
What makes you so special? The fact that you are special.
Man, I don't know what's worse, his singing or the toning on that raggedy old guitar. This episode kicks off with Peter getting hooked on a children's TV show called Jolly Farm Revue, and after Lois demands he look after Stewie while she goes out, the show gets canceled, and he decides to start up his own program called Petey's Playhouse. This is Peter we're talking about, though, so you know he's gonna screw it up somehow.
Today's story is lesbian butts in 80s jeans.
Okay, Peter, you got my attention for now. But surprisingly, instead of getting canceled like Harvey Weinstein, Peter's show continues to stay on air. Lois gets fed up with Peter focusing too much on the show and not doing his part to look after Stewie, so he reacts like any responsible, mature adult would do when their partner calls them out.
Oh, hi, Shaggy Naggy. It sounds like someone's having fun over here.
10 out of 10 voice impression there, Peter. I could barely tell the difference. But Peter's antics have the unintended effect of unleashing hordes of rabid child fans onto Lois, and Stewie is more than happy to take advantage of the chaos. I'm glad Stewie learned a thing or two from his Boston counterpart because a golf club to the head is exactly the sort of brutality he'll need to kill Lois. 70 out of 100 on this one, since the only reason Lois survives this murder attempt is that thick skull of hers. Peter eventually agrees to stop using the puppet in exchange for Lois easing up on her constant nagging, but without the Lois puppet, he's gonna have to find some new material to keep his audience engaged. Hey, you can say a lot of things about Peter, but you gotta admit, he'll put his heart and soul into what he believes in. That's a real American dad right there. Wait a minute. But while we're on the topic of Peter stepping up when it matters most, we get more of that in the courtship of Stewie's father, where Stewie and Peter spend the entire episode bonding with each other while they torment Lois.
Hey, Lois, you want some beans with that, right?
Stewie, I think you may have just found yourself the perfect partner in crime. Things kick off with Stewie on his usual solo grind to kill Lois after she refuses to take him to the park. He creates a hovering drill machine, which I guess is supposed to drill her into the wall, giggity. But given his abysmal track record so far with his wacky inventions, you can already guess how well this latest attempt will go.
Help! Somebody! I'm blacking out!
My guy, not only did you build the world's slowest drill, but you also built it so that someone has to pilot it instead of, oh, I don't know, making it frickin' autonomous. This is an easy 5 out of 100 and a clear sign that all these high-tech murder solutions are just holding him back. With the drill machine being a complete bust, Stewie tries to murder Lois in a more traditional manner by using a crossbow while she's busy talking with his teacher about his drawings. Her back is turned and she's completely lost in her own world about Peter not spending enough time with his kid, so surely he hits the shot, right?
Thank you for letting me know.
Damn, she moved!
My guy, stormtroopers got better aim than you do. Another 5 out of 100 for little Stu, and a clear sign he needs a helping hand this episode if he's gonna make any progress on killing Lois. Luckily for him, Peter's actively trying to bond with him and realizes just how much fun his kid is having when Lois gets hurt. So the two of them gang up on her, stuff her into the trunk of a family car, and well... You know what they say, like father, like son. This is the first murder attempt we've seen so far that 100% should have succeeded if it weren't for Lois's absurd plot armor, since the writers are too lazy to even attempt to show how she manages to get out of the trunk. easily 80 out of 100 attempt for me. But like the spineless cuck that he is, Peter caves in, sides with Lois when she demands Stewie be sent to his room. He tries to make it up to his son by taking him to Disney World, but the Disney goons have more sinister plans in mind for young Stewie.
It's a tiny, tiny world, tiny, tiny world.
Man, Stewie's had a roller coaster ride of ups and downs in this episode. From nearly killing Lois to getting enslaved at Disney World of all places. Peter does eventually rescue Stewie though, and the latter's faith in his father is restored as a future partner in crime for any murder plots on Lois. But at the end of the day, and despite his many failures that we've covered so far, Stewie really does his best work when he's working solo, like in Death is a... where everyone becomes immortal after Death injures himself while chasing Peter.
Look, I caught Flo, Joe. You don't think I can catch you? Ah! My ankle! Ah!
Oh, that boy needs some milk.
Oh! Somebody! Oh! He needs some milk!
The episode begins in classic Stewie fashion with him trying to pull off a quick hit on Lois while her back is turned.
Put you down for a nice nap.
No, I shall put you down for a nap, Mother.
I'll admit it was a slightly better attempt than the various times he's tried and failed to use a crossbow, but his accuracy seriously still needs quite a bit of work. I'll give it a 20 out of 100 for managing to fire off 5 projectiles at once. Although, now that I think about it, where the heck did he store all those darts? You know what, I don't want to know. Meanwhile, Peter gets hit with a fat hospital bill after a standard checkup for a potentially cancerous lump. This is the US after all, and decides to declare himself deceased to avoid paying it. Death ends up spraining his ankle while coming to collect on Peter's soul, which means that everybody is immortal until he heals up. He begs Peter not to tell anyone about this, so you already know exactly what he's about to do.
I'm here with the man who claims he withstood a barrage of bullets and did not die.
I'm not sure what's fatter, his mouth or his gut. Actually, it's probably his gut. I don't know why I bothered asking that. Unfortunately, nobody told Stewie about any of this, so he continues plotting more vicious ways to put an end to his mother. Finally, when her guard is down, he emerges from the shadows and strikes. Okay, so I'm genuinely impressed by this kill attempt. The fall down the stairs alone should have been enough to break her neck, but the follow-up with the wardrobe landing on top of her and the grenade for good measure? If it weren't for everybody being immortal right about now, we'd be watching Lois's funeral procession for the rest of the episode. 90 out of 100 for young Stu. Peter is eventually forced to take over Death's job and is given orders to kill the kids from Dawson's Creek while they're on an airplane. He's hesitant to go through with it because he's such a good guy, so let's see how this goes.
A pilot error. Geez, I probably should have worn mittens.
You think, Peter? Although he didn't kill the kids, Death is satisfied that Peter restored the natural order of life and death by killing 2 innocent pilots instead and decides to leave him be for now. The same can't be said for Stewie and his plans to finally murder Lois in the aptly named Stewie Kills Lois, where Stewie locks in for real and decides to end his mother once and for all. I've said once and for all a lot. And she hasn't died yet.
I'll teach that hussy to go on a boat ride without me. I'm going to put bamboo splinters under all her fingernails, and I'm going to strip her down and tie her to the bed.
You want to run that last part by me again, bud? In this last episode here, we kick things off with Peter and Lois going on a cruise for the latter's birthday, which infuriates Stewie since he wasn't allowed to join in on the fun. He starts hatching all sorts of schemes to punish Lois for her insolence, and Brian is as supportive as ever for his best friend's plans.
The minute Lois walks through that door, you're gonna forget all about it, beg for your apple juice, go poop, and fall asleep.
I'm joking, of course. This is Brian we're talking about after all. But his words leave a lasting mark on Stewie, who decides it's time to put his money where his mouth is and put an end to his blood feud with Lois once and for all. Stewie sneaks his way onto the cruise ship via speedboat and catches Lois out on the deck. Already distracted by Peter's humiliating antics aboard the ship, she's completely off guard by Stewie's arrival, giving him the perfect opportunity to strike. This is, without question, Stewie's best murder attempt on his mom throughout the whole series. From the flawless infiltration onto the ship, to the spray of gunfire actually hitting the right target, this is Stewie's first and only murder attempt that I'm rating a perfect 100 out of 100. An entire year passes, the Griffin family tries to move on from Lois's death, but Brian discovers that Stewie really did follow through in his plan to kill his mother and is determined to bring him to justice. But Lady Luck continues to favor Stewie in all the right ways.
Oh my God.
That does look like Peter's handwriting.
As it turns out, Peter had mentioned to his friends that he took out a life insurance policy on Lois while they were on the ship, causing them to suspect him as the murderer. And when they find Stewie's evidence in the trash bins, Joe puts 2 and 2 together and takes him in for trial. Everything is set up for this to be marked down in history as the perfect murder attempt for Stewie, and there's nothing that can stop him now. Oh, you've gotta be fracking kidding me. Literally, the only reason Lois survives and continues to be a nuisance for the rest of the series is because the writers didn't have the guts to actually pull the trigger themselves and kill her off, which is a shame. But that sums up all Stewie's best and worst attempts at whacking Lois, and if you want to see more Family Guy insanity like this, click the screen right about now. Don't make me say it twice. Thanks for watching, guys.